Ms. Priyanshi Sharma. By the time, if there's anybody who wants to share their literary work, you're please welcome. We'll be starting with a session shortly. Bharat Literature Festival is celebrating its second edition under the umbrella of New Delhi World Book Fair, organized by the National Book Trust India, under the Ministry of Education, Government of India.
Sharmistha Mukherjee, a prominent figure in both the political and cultural realms of India, embodies a multifaceted persona shaped by her lineage, talent, and dedication. She is the daughter of the 13th President of India, Bharat Ratna Shri Pranab Mukherjee. From a tender age, Sharmistha displayed a penchant for the arts, immersing herself in the graceful movements of Kathak, earning her accolades such as the prestigious Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 2003. Beyond her contributions to the cultural sphere, Sharmistha Mukherjee is deeply engaged in the political landscape of India. Her active involvement in various political and social initiatives underscores a commitment to serving her nation and its people. Her book, Pranav My Father, A Daughter Remembers, stands as a poignant tribute to her father. Through this literary endeavor, Sharmistha offers a unique perspective, delving into the personal reflections and experiences of Pranav Mukherjee while providing valuable insights into India's political history. Through her art, politics, and words, she continues to inspire and uplift, leaving an indelible imprint on the culture and political landscape of India.
The voice of an accused, de-evening life. Lily in the bloom, how her father survived. A tale where abundant stories strive, how under an executive head she thrived. Elegance and poise adorns her way, her intellect and wisdom bourgeoning each day. Born into the illustrious Mukherjee family, she carried along the legacy of her father. As a passionate advocate for the arts and a gifted wordsmith, she has woven narratives that captivate the mind and stir the soul. Her book stands as a poignant tribute to her father's legacy, while offering a compelling commentary on the challenges and aspirations of a modern India. Someone gracefully carrying the legacy of courage, compassion, and unwavering dedication, she is Miss Sharmistha Mukherjee. Along with her, I would like to call upon stage Ms. Priyanshi Sharma, an award-winning journalist, a news anchor, and reporter. She is the recipient of National Television Young Journalist Award for her investigative reporting. She is also the recipient of the Exchange for Media 40 Under 40 English Journalism Award 2023. Before that, let us have a look on the journey of Ms. Sharmistha Mukherjee.
Sharmistha Mukherjee, a prominent figure in both the political and cultural realms of India, embodies a multifaceted persona shaped by her lineage, talent, and dedication. She is the daughter of the 13th President of India, Bharat Ratna Shri Pranab Mukherjee. From a tender age, Sharmistha displayed a penchant for the arts, immersing herself in the graceful movements of Kathak, earning her accolades such as the prestigious Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 2003. Beyond her contributions to the cultural sphere, Sharmistha Mukherjee is deeply engaged in the political landscape of India. Her active involvement in various political and social initiatives underscores her commitment to serving her nation and its people. Her book, Pranav My Father, Her Daughter Remembers, stands as a poignant tribute to her father. Through this literary endeavor, Sharmistha offers a unique perspective, delving into the personal reflections and experiences of Pranav Mukherjee while providing valuable insights into India's political history. Through her art, politics, and words, she continues to inspire and uplift, leaving an indelible imprint on the culture and political landscape of India. Sharmistha Mukherjee, a prominent figure in both the political and cultural realms of India, embodies a multifaceted persona shaped by her lineage, talent, and dedication. She is the daughter of the 13th President of India, Bharat Ratna Shri Pranab Mukherjee. From a tender age, Sharmistha displayed a penchant for the arts, immersing herself in the graceful movements of Kathak, earning her accolades such as the prestigious Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 2003. Beyond her contributions to the cultural sphere, Sharmistha Mukherjee is deeply engaged in the political landscape of India. Her active involvement in various political and social initiatives underscores her commitment to serving her nation and its people. Her book, Pranav My Father, Her Daughter Remembers, stands as a poignant tribute to her father. Through this literary endeavor, Sharmistha offers a unique perspective, delving into the personal reflections and experiences of Pranav Mukherjee while providing valuable insights into India's political history. Through her art, politics, and words, she continues to inspire and uplift, leaving an indelible imprint on the culture and political landscape of India.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Ms. Sharmistha Mukherjee. Along with her, I would like to call upon on stage Ms. Priyanshi Sharma, an award-winning journalist, a news anchor and reporter. She is the recipient of National Television Young Journalist Award for her investigative reporting. I would like to call upon on stage the director of Bharat Literature Festival, Ms. Dipali Vashesh, to kindly felicitate our guest, Ms. Sharmistha Mukherjee. I now request ma'am to kindly felicitate the moderator of the session, Ms. Priyanshi Sharma. I request Ms. Priyanshi Sharma to kindly start the session.
I hope you all can hear me. Great. Thank you so much, Bharat Literature Fest, for inviting me. This is a wonderful session to be in. And as all of us know, we're here to discuss a very special book that is a revelation, that is a common person's sort of insight into the power corridors and an insight into many important political events of the last few decades. And that's none other than Sharmistha Mukherjee's book, Pranab, My Father, A Daughter Remembers. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. It's lovely to have you and to have this discussion about this book. Now, to start with, I'd like to talk about a question that I had before I started reading the book, which was that, of course, Dr. Pranab Mukherjee has written his own autobiography, several versions of it. So, what is it that this book has to offer? I know the answer, I've read it, but I want you to tell the audience and potential readers who would want to know.
Thanks, Priyanshi. I think you have begun the discussion on a very interesting note. My father has written his own political autobiography in 4 volumes, published by Rupa only. But this is also his personal journey. This is not just his political journey, this is also his personal journey from a small village in rural Bengal to the Raisina Hills, to the grandest resident of India. And on this process, this is also his political journey that, what he had to go through. The most interesting aspect, I would say, that, my father had the habit of writing diaries and since his childhood. And what the earliest diary I got about from somewhere 1970s, I think 1970 to 73, until the very end of his last day of his life, he wrote. And those diaries were actually of great interest to the journalists because those offer, as they presumed and rightly so, a very insider's view. And of course, when you are in active politics, and my father was known for restraint in his speech, so there are many things he could not reveal. And he always would tell the journalist and also tell his friends that one day I mean, he's going to give the diaries to his daughter, and it is up to me, whether if I want to do something about it or not. So it also has got, his innermost thoughts, which he could not reveal in his uh, uh, own political autobiographies. So these excerpts from his diaries, and I was also allowed to read them only after he passed away. Another thing which is there in the book, which many people have always asked me, that how was it growing up in the power corridors of Delhi? When I was 4 years old, my father became a member of parliament in 1969. When I was about 8 years old, he became a minister in Indira Gandhi's cabinet. And since then, he has always been, whether in the ruling party or in the opposition, a very, very important person. Very, very important, whether in Congress-led governments or in sitting in the opposition, a very active member. So how was it growing up? So how was it being Pranab Mukherjee's daughter? So there are also glimpses of my own personal experience in the book.
That's a very good teaser that you've given us for the book, and we'll get into more specific details. But I want to pick on that one point that you said it's his personal thoughts. I'm sure that all of us have someday or the other wondered how a prime minister thinks, or how a president thinks, or how any minister thinks. And this book tells you exactly how or what they're thinking beyond what you hear in the press conferences. So that's very interesting. Another point that you made was that he left those diaries to you and it was up to you. So you decided to publish them. You decided to go through all of them. So to help us set the context, tell us how many diaries you went through and tell us, were there still things that you couldn't publish? Were there still things that you had to keep confidential? Because of course he's been the president, so there must be confidential things.
Of course, there are 51 diaries. As I say, the earliest one I got in 1972. And then in between, somewhere in the early 1980s, some of his diaries, especially of the Indira Gandhi eras, they got spoiled due to a flooding in the basement of our particular residence. That's our personal residence. And the diaries were kept there. So there was one day some kind of flooding during the monsoon. So some of the diaries got spoiled, and he always used to write with ink pen. So they are all. I mean, I recovered one of them, which is smudged and totally, but rest or many of them were all gone. And in fact, for a while, he actually gave up writing. And it was P.V. Narasimha Rao who told him that you must continue with your diaries, because one day it is going to provide uh, the future generation the inside story of Indian politics. And let me be very clear, this is just Pranab Mukherjee's perspective. I mean, every person has a different perspective to different events. So he was just one of the players, out of many players in any particular series of incidents. So this is his perspective, his very personal perspective. Rather, I would say my interpretation of his perspective. And yes, there are not. It is not just he was the president, but he was a very very senior member of all the governments except for Rajiv Gandhi's, but all the governments led by the Congress Party, whether it's Indiraji's government, whether it's P.V. Narasimha Rao's government, whether it was UPA 1, UPA 2. So obviously he was privy to many, many details. I mean, there are some things which I felt perhaps should not come out as yet in public domain. And as, the government decided to declassify the files related to those information, then it should come out. So yes, I mean, there are things, of course, I felt wherever I had any doubt, I mean, I said no. I mean, what he thought about Indiraji, how was his working relationship with Indira Gandhi, what he thought about Rahul Gandhi, P.V. Narasimha Rao, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, these are all his very personal views, but these are not state secrets. So wherever I had any doubt, whether it's about regarding some government decision or foreign policy, I mean, I felt it's better not to, because I definitely did not want to violate the Official Secrets Act.
Right, and the comments that you mentioned about Rahul Gandhi, those have particularly created a controversy. And we'll come to the political controversy later, because I want to talk about the book in its own merit first. So I want to talk about one of the most scathing remarks that at least I read in the book, and I'm going to quote from the book. The book has a quote that Pranab Mukherjee called the Gandhi-Nehru family the worst form of hegemony, which I find a very strong remark, so to speak. And I think anybody who would be reading the book would find it pretty strong. And even in his last few entries before his death, he even questioned whether he had a role in all of this. That's very interesting. Tell us about it.
Yes, it is. My father had been a lifelong congressman. My grandfather was a freedom fighter and an active member of Congress. He was the district president of his own district in Birbhum in those days. And so, I mean, even if I am questioning, say, the leadership quality of Rahul Gandhi, but doesn't mean that I am not a Congress person. I'm a hardcore Congress person believing in Congress ideology of pluralism, secularism, inclusivity, and everything in parliamentary democracy. Now, when my father, like in his post-retirement, post-presidential years, obviously he was, I mean, far less busier than he had been. And then at that time, when you reach at that stage of life, in your maybe at just few years before your death, obviously you become more introspective. You think about your life, and he was extremely worried. Post 2014, there are remarks, excerpts from his diaries in his book. He was extremely worried about Congress, that where it is going. And just about a month before he is passing away, he wrote that yes, it is. I mean, if one family, out of which there are 5 Congress presidents in post-independent era in post-independent India. So it is the worst form of hegemony of a particular family within the party, and it has over the years killed the democratic spirit within Congress. There has the internal elections were stopped, everything was centralized, everything the process of electing the leaders, starting from the CWC to the Congress president, to absolutely booth level workers, district presidents, state presidents. There was earlier a process of electing these leaders. And this process of organizational elections was introduced by Mahatma Gandhi. So over the years, everything was stopped and it was all nomination culture. And the whole power within Congress rests with the Congress president. And as we know that, like there had been in all these years, 5 Congress presidents, except for short stint of Narasimha Rao ji and Sitaram Kistri ji after that. And so he himself also questioned his role. And he was, by his own confession, which he maintained till the last, day of his, public and private life, that he was a blind follower of Indira Gandhi. He always said that, whatever he was, that was because of Indira Gandhi, who was his mentor. But he himself questioned, just about a month before, that whether, his blind following of Indira Gandhi, or later on to Sonia Gandhi, whether him or people like him, are responsible for today's situation of Congress, whether they are responsible for stopping the electoral process within Congress and allowing the Congress party, he has used this word, allowing Congress party a personal fiefdom of Gandhi Nehru family. So he has questioned himself, and as I said, that he was very disturbed. He was very disturbed towards the end of his life, seeing this kind of situation. So on the process of analyzing that what has happened over the years, this kind of thing didn't happen in one day, and so on that process, yes, he did question, he did make a remark that, that by making Congress the personal fiefdom of Gandhi Nehru family, we have killed the democratic spirit of the party.
Right, and that's interesting to see this way, that as you mentioned, these are personal thoughts. And such criticism, rather, of your own party members would show that these diary entries are personal. This is something beyond press releases, things that you can't say publicly. And that's what I think makes this book particularly interesting to read, that it gives you, like anybody who's working in an organization, you talk about your boss, or you talk about your colleagues. So we need to look at it from that perspective. That doesn't make you any less of a congressman.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I have said it in various public platforms in the course of these years, and also to some of the Congress leaders, who had been questioning why are you saying this. I quit politics in 2021. And I said that if I was, within the party, if I was office bearer of the party, if I was actively involved, obviously I would have been bound by the party discipline, and rightly so, to be restrained in my speech. But today I am not. I quit politics in September 2021. And actually, after that, when I started reading, because, my father passed away in August 2020. And it's not that the very next day I started reading his diaries. I took some time to kind of gather myself, and it was initially very difficult for me to read his diaries, because these are such personal diaries, are a very personal, intimate document. Nobody was allowed to read those naturally when till the time he was alive. So when I started reading, it was it revealed a different world to me, including my father's inner world. And it was emotionally very difficult for me. So it was not that I was, the day after he passed away, I was starting reading his diaries and making notes. No, it took me some time. But when actually I started reading his diaries properly, with a clearer thought, I realized that if I was in politics, I wouldn't have been able to write this book. As simple as that.
So getting out of politics helped all of us read these insights about the former president's life. So I want to come to this point that, as you mentioned, we've talked about the controversy that it has created within the Congress party. And before we come to the political controversy and the letter also that you've written to Rahul Gandhi, I want to talk about, as you mentioned, the emotional journey that it was for you to go back to the diaries, read about your father's life. I want to ask you this question not as Sharmistha Mukherjee, Pranab Mukherjee's daughter, but as Sharmistha Mukherjee, the person who had lost her father, and she was then going on reading the diaries. Tell us about the experience that you had. There would have been political insights, there would have been personal insights, there would have been things you would have written about family or differences that every father and daughter has. So tell us about the journey that you had.
Yes, there are many entries which I found, and as I said, it revealed a very different side of my father. My father, as of people of his generations, they did not wear emotions on their sleeves. And I said that he was never a cuddly, cuddly dad. He would never do puchu puchu. That he loves me, but he was discreet in showing his affections. So, I'm just giving you a very, very personal and nothing to do with politics.
Absolutely, that's what we want.
And so we are a family of animal lovers, and especially dog lovers. So since my childhood, we have had dogs and multiple of dogs. Somewhere in 1970s, I read an entry in his diary. Somewhere in 1970s, we had a dog called Jimbo, and Jimbo died that day. And my father wrote in his diary that throughout the day he was very depressed, and again he was thinking about Jimbo. And he was so depressed that at night, actually, he hid in his bathroom and cried his heart out. Now, I can't imagine, that my father, who always portrayed a very strong person, able to handle
Serious, if I may add.
handle his emotions very strongly, would actually hide in the bathroom and cry his heart out due to the death of a dog. So I was extremely touched by it, and in a way, it actually revealed a new side of him to me. So yes, there are many instances, and obviously there are many reference about me, about my brothers, and some of the differences I have quoted in my diary, of course, and some, of course, I have edited out. I mean, obviously.
You don't want to sound like the naughty daughter.
I am a naughty daughter. I was a very naughty daughter. I don't have any, problem saying that. And I think somewhere all the fathers they love the naughty daughters, as I'm sure you would be also.
Absolutely. But that's a very heart touching story that you just talked about. And that really tells you about the man inside the former president. Beyond the hard shell in front of the press conferences, that's the man that you get to learn about in this book that I'm holding in my hand. So now I can't help but talk about the controversy it has created. And let's talk about some comments which have particularly not gone well with the Congress party. Now, one such example from the book is Pranab Mukherjee calling Rahul Gandhi, talking about during the ordinance. All of us know the famous ordinance. And he said that this is the last nail in the Congress's coffin. He's in the book. You've spoken about multiple opinions that he had about Rahul Gandhi. To quote a few more examples for people who might not have read the book till now, he said that Rahul Gandhi had the arrogance of the Gandhis minus the political acumen. It also calls him politically immature, among several other adjectives that I think you should talk about. So tell us what you understood of Pranab Mukherjee's opinion of Rahul Gandhi.
You know, if Pranab Mukherjee was known as one of the most astute politicians of his generation, if he writes about a politician of the next generation, that he is yet to mature politically. I mean, I'm really surprised. Why should it be taken as a controversy? Rather, if you would have said that Rahul Gandhi was a great politically mature leader, and he's trashing the ordinance, saying that by his own government, he's trashing that ordinance and saying that it should be really spoke of his great maturity, of his wisdom as a politician. I think that should have become the headline actually. So I really don't understand that, why this whole controversy is all about. And to be very honest, if I was in Congress today, I was one of their national spokesperson, I would have suggested that they should have simply said that, Mr. Mukherjee was one of the most astute politicians of his time. If he makes such a remark about a very junior politician, and this remark was also made, like somewhere about 10, 11 years back, whatever. So what is wrong in that? Every junior politician of the next generation should learn from this leader. That would have been gracious. But rather than going all hammer and tong about it, that how dare. And this is something I really find it surprising that these remarks were there in his diaries. He never spoke about it. So do they also want to control what a person writes in his diaries? And do
person
they thinks and write in his diaries? Do they also want to control? They talk about freedom of expression. They talk about democratic freedom of and which also includes criticism, not just wah wah talia of the leader. So what a person writes in his in her book, quoting from her father's diaries, do they want to control even that? So I think this is really the time for Congress. I wouldn't even call it Congress because the Congress I grew up reading in history. The Indian National Congress of Mahatma Gandhi and Nahla, of Pandit Nehru, even Indira Gandhi, even I would say Rajiv and Sonia, even they were also open to criticism. But what has become now, I would call it Rahul Congress. It is not even Indian National Congress, this is Rahul Congress. And they are like really intolerant. They are just not open to any criticism, any suggestion, other than, unless and until you are a psychopath. You just don't have any place in that party anymore. It's as simple as that.
And that allegation is slightly ironic because the Congress keeps on saying this about the BJP.
Absolutely.
That nobody allows you to
Absolutely.
criticize PM Modi or any BJP ministers. But if that's what they're resorting to, then that's ironic. So, coming to the criticism that how do I put it? Coming to the criticism of Rahul Gandhi's criticism, you even wrote a letter to Rahul Gandhi talking about the amount of trolling that you got on social media. If any of you, in case you've missed it, there was trolling that, of course, Ms. Mukherjee has spoken about. She has written a letter to Rahul Gandhi. Tell us about that and tell us about what you were subjected to. You also said that, unfortunately, there were several sexual connotations in some of the trolls.
And it has been since my book was published on 11 December 2000 of last year. 11 December, that is my father's birth anniversary. So since then I had been subjected to pretty vicious trolling. But it just went berserk. Recently, a couple of weeks back, I went to Jaipur Literature Festival. And on the sidelines, I gave an interview. Some media person asked me, and I said that Congress should now look beyond Gandhi-Nehru leadership. Because under Rahul Gandhi's leadership, we have seen how Congress has fared in the last two elections. And can it be acceptable under any political party? Can it be acceptable within BJP? That if under one leader, the party is losing, having devastating results, one election after another. So is it wrong to question that leadership? And I am no longer in the party. I am a Congress supporter. I am a responsible citizen. I want the country to have a very strong opposition. So is it wrong to raise that question? But since then, oh my God, the whole Congress ecosystem has been totally after me, and there was this one particular person, and who was that time, being followed by very senior Congress leaders. And he also claimed himself to be a chela of one particular Congress leader, very proudly. Most I can't even, I will literally feel nausea even thinking about it, abusing me and my father in total sexual connotation. I was furious, I was enraged, and when I get angry. And naturally, anybody abusing a father, and who is not just my father, who was a very, very senior member of Congress Party, who is a former president of India, using such nasty, abusive, sexual language. I could not just take it. I quoted his tweet. I tagged uh, the communication head and the social media head and Rahul Gandhi, saying that, do you condone this kind of, what kind of action should be taken against this person? Well, there was nothing. There was, no reaction from the Congress, nothing from the leaders. Personally, also, nobody tried to reach me out. And this continued. That person continued, abusing me and my father further, and using this kind of a very nasty sexual language. So then and I saw that many of the so-called Congress supporters were actually encouraging him, were liking, arting, heaping further uh, insults, abuses. So I wrote a letter, an open letter to Rahul Gandhi. I told him very clearly and frankly my views that one of the contention of the trolling was that your father got everything on charity from Congress. So I said, if this is the belief of your followers and if you condone it, you are just kind of proving that Congress is nothing but a feudal system where everything is doled out without consideration of merit. And for that, the next 14 generations should be subservient to your family. So you are just, you are actually agreeing by your silence. You are actually agreeing to that argument. Which your detractors say that they behave like feudal lords. And also about this, then I said, that is your problem. You are welcome, whatever you want to believe, that if your family is a feudal lord and you just dole out, in charities, the positions or the ministership without any consideration merit, to just on at your whims and fancy, you are most welcome to believe it. But I'm not going to accept this kind of sexual connotations. And you talk about nyay, including nari nyay. So if one of your followers, are abusing, a woman and her father like that, even forget about the fact that my father was a senior leader, forget about the fact that he was a former president. But as an ordinary citizen, as an ordinary woman, I seek nyaya from it. I seek justice. So that was my open letter, but again, no reaction. One Congress leader kind of reached out to me, personally. So I said, you have any action? But nothing has been done.
That's extremely unfortunate to hear that you've been subjected
Exactly.
to that.
This is not only me, and as I said to the Congress leader, that this statement that is being made by me. So you are most welcome to abuse me. Why to drag my father, who is no more, who is no longer a dead person? Why are you dragging him into this? And again is this kind of attitude that you have as if given on charity something, and literally like earlier days in the feudal the feudal world, there used to be this bond of bond of servience. That whatever with the lords, the master and the slave. So is it that kind of attitude that for the next few generations, our family has to, go down to Gandhi? Sorry, I don't abide by that. I live in a democratic country. I live in a free India. And I think my father has contributed majorly to Congress, has majorly to India. You are most welcome to criticize his policies. But this kind of personal abuse and this kind of sexual abuse, either towards me or towards anybody, is not going to be accepted. Period.
One is always open to criticize, to disagree. And there are several ways to criticize or disagree in a civilized fashion.
Absolutely, and that has been the strength of Congress.
Right.
That has been the strength of parliamentary democracy established by Congress. You know, this is, and so that's why I say that today's Congress led by Rahul Gandhi is not Congress. I mean, they just start preaching, it's just paying lip service to the Congress values. You know what? If he can't even, he talks about what? Nafrat ki bazaar mein mohabbat ki dukaan. You know, as if mohabbat is a object to be bought and sold in a dukaan. Firstly, that itself is something very strange. And if he can't even convert his own followers to stop spewing nafrat to others, if he can't even, convince his own followers, how is he going to convince the others? So, what rubbish are you talking about? What hypocrisy is this?
That's exactly the point they criticize the BJP on, that there's no room for disagreement or
Yes,
criticism.
they are doing the same thing.
Right, and as we talk about the trolling, I want to talk about the other side as well. That at the book launch in December last year, you had Mr. P. Chidambaram, who's a very senior leader of the Congress party. He was there at the book launch. You have also talked about how Mr. Pranab Mukherjee would have appreciated Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra.
Yes, absolutely.
So there are some positive things that have been written as well, that have been talked about as well. But that's not being highlighted enough.
You see, that is the difference I find between Congress and BJP now. Because many BJP, I have seen the social media tweets and all. There are a lot of criticism about BJP also in the book. But, they just pick up the good things and they highlight that. And Congress just pick up the negatives and highlight that. That is the difference. And most probably in Congress, that's what I had been earlier banging my head, that at least read the book. Read the book before jumping into conclusions. But obviously nobody bothered to read. Nobody bothers to read. Nobody. But so that is a very strange thing I find about Congress and BJP, that they actually took out the positive things and highlighted those, whereas Congress is just bent upon one thing: criticism of Rahul Gandhi. Why Indira Gandhi doesn't belong to Congress? My father is full of praises. What about Pandit Nehru? My father was a full Nehruite, and millions of times he said, and it's there in the book also, that he is the best prime minister. And Congress, the democracy is because of a Congress led by Pandit Nehru. What about Dr. Manmohan Singh? My father wanted to confer Bharat Ratna to Dr. Manmohan Singh and talk to ask Pulak Chatterjee to ascertain views of Sonia Gandhi. But of course, nothing came out of it. That's a different thing. But doesn't Dr. Manmohan Singh belong to Congress? So, these praises are just totally overlooked. And that shows the current Rahul Congress's mentality. That other than Rahul Gandhi and Gandhi family, no one matters. No one matters in Congress. That shows their attitude. It's most unfortunate, but by their own action, they are proving it to be true.
Right, and as you mentioned, there are several positive things that have been written, but as much as everybody has read about the criticism, I read about this positive comment made very few places, that you've talked about
Absolutely,
how you would have appreciated the Bharat Jodo Yatra.
Absolutely. And one thing, this is something one journalist asked me, that your book is going to be used by the BJP for the elections. I said, what is stopping Congress from using it? There are far more praises of Congress and Congress leaders than BJP. What is stopping them? But for that, they will have to read it. They don't want to do any damn thing. Sorry for using, this language.
We let it
please cut parliamentary language. Please speak up. Please expunge it. So that's the thing. That's the attitude. That's the attitude.
Right. And now that you mention it, let me do the Congress party a favor by highlighting one point of criticism for the BJP that's from the book. So the book has this particular quote that Pranab Mukherjee wrote, that when Prime Minister Modi became the Prime Minister back in 2014, he said that the stability of the government is assured, but what about social cohesion? And I find this very interesting because he says, I'm really worried about social cohesion under the BJP government, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So isn't that a fairly critical and very concerning?
Very strong statement, very concerned. It shows how concerned. And I would like to, request the audience that just go through his speeches which are there in his website, which is there in public domain. During, as a president, without, of course, he was an astute politician, he knew how to speak without mentioning any particular event or any particular person or any particular government. He spoke about all these concerns. Even his, very, very, strongly criticized by the Congress left system of his visit to RSS. From the RSS platform, he actually propagated Congress ideology. He said that the pluralism is the soul of India. From RSS platform, he quoted their Betanoia Pandit Nehru. So why isn't Congress talking about this? Why is Congress just hung up on just his criticism of Rahul Gandhi? In this, he has advised, as I read from his diaries, that he has advised Mr. Modi that to acknowledge the contributions of previous Congress prime ministers, and especially Pandit Nehru. And he also criticized, what he felt was the tendency of this current government, what I termed as de-Nehruification. So he has criticized that. Why isn't Congress picking up those points? What is stopping them from picking up those points? So, this is exactly, I think they're just so self-obsessed with that idea, and they're really, today only I was reading a statement of this one very senior Maharashtra leader who has, Baba Siddiqui, who has left Congress. He said that, Ashok Chavan ji has left Congress. So Baba Siddiqui ji has said that they're living in a la la land. He exactly said this. So they just can't look beyond Rahul Gandhi anymore. And I think the more, Congress is under his leadership is losing ground, the more they want to remain in that their self-made, self-imposed ivory tower.
That's how you mentioned that it's all about Rahul Gandhi. If they're saying that this is going to be used by the BJP, as we've talked about, there's criticism of the BJP as well.
Absolutely.
So you can make it, you're in a way helping the BJP spread this narrative by only picking up these points about Rahul Gandhi. So they're in a way helping the BJP.
Absolutely. They are actually helping the BJP. Congress is actually helping the BJP.
Exactly. So you said the Congress is not able to get beyond Rahul Gandhi, but let's all get beyond Rahul Gandhi.
Yes.
And talk about some very important and very interesting stories that you've talked about in the book. So you've addressed a very famous rumor about Pranab Mukherjee and the Gandhis, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. According to several accounts, the first differences between the Gandhis and Mr. Pranab Mukherjee started back in that flight when Indira Gandhi, of course, was assassinated. And the talk was that he staked claim to become the Prime Minister. You have talked about a completely contrary version. Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to tell too much in detail about it because then people will not buy the book.
Yeah.
But as my father, that was absolutely wrong. And that was deliberately planted by one gentleman, one Congress leader, who was also traveling with them in the flight, who was there in the flight. So this rumor was deliberately planted by that gentleman. Again, to find out the name of the person, you have to buy the book. So I'm not going to tell.
It's all there, trust me.
It's all there. But the issue is, that is, as per my father, that it was just a rumor, a very strong rumor. Even P.C. Alexander, who was the principal secretary to Indira Ji and then later became principal secretary to Rajiv Gandhi, and who had a major role in making Rajiv Gandhi the Prime Minister immediately, because that time President Jai Singh was traveling abroad. So even in his book also he wrote that some people deliberately spread a canard about Pranab Mukherjee trying to stake claim, obviously with the intention of creating a rift between Rajiv and Pranab Mukherjee.
Now I'm going to focus on these specific themes that I find really interesting. One, we've addressed that very popular rumor. The other point I want to talk about is the Prime Minister India never had. which is what you've extensively talked about in the book. It talks about Pranab Mukherjee wanting to be a prime minister, which I think any politician, true to his profession, would want to become the prime minister at the end of the day. So that's nothing to be surprised by. But what is really surprising is that, as you've written, I'd like to show you all. There's a chapter, chapter 7, the man for all seasons. Pranab Mukherjee was known as the man for all seasons, the crisis solver, the troubleshooter. Despite all of that, he wasn't made the prime minister. And in one quote, he says, Sonia Gandhi had something to do with it. Tell us about that.
Well, some degree of mistrust had already started creeping in between my father and post Indira Gandhi, like Rajiv Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi, due to all these canards spread by Rajiv's coterie at that time. And also my father's own nature, I would say, that he had a very strong mind of his own. And along with that strong mind, it was backed with a very solid experience, expertise, and knowledge. So such a person, it was very difficult to argue with him because, his reasoning would be backed by very facts and figures, precedents. Any senior journalist or political leaders would admit to this. Such a person never blindly toe the line. So in our personality-oriented political culture, these kind of people are kind of looked at with little bit of apprehension. Because he's never going to toe the line. That was, I think, the crux of lack of ultimate trust, between the Gandhis, post Indira Gandhi, and my father. So I wouldn't say that Sonia Gandhi did not trust him at all. Of course not. Nothing in life is in black and grey. When she was the UPA 1 and 2 chairperson, my father reached the height of his political career. He was given many, very important portfolios, and not just that. What I have heard from senior leaders, senior ministers of that party, that in cabinet meetings, I mean, not only my father would conduct the meeting, but his words would mostly be final. He was given that kind of respect. So if there was not a great degree of trust between Sonia Gandhi and my father, that wouldn't have been possible. But yes, that ultimate, that little push, that complete faith. And unlike Dr. Manmohan Singh, my father, Pranab Mukherjee, was a political person. So, and again, going by their own experience of Gandhi Nehru family, even Indira ji also, I mean, my father would argue with her also. But she being she, when she would listen, many a time she would modify her decision depending on my father's judgment. Otherwise, she would say that you have said what you have to say, now go and do whatever I do. And this was one thing about my father, and that also I have heard from various leaders, that within the party platform, he would differ, he would give his argument. But once a party decision was taken, he would absolutely, very strictly abide by it. And somewhere he also recognized that as far as the party is concerned, Sonia Gandhi is the ultimate boss. So whatever it is, finally her decision is Sonia Gandhi. So this whole lack of trust business has been, I would say, blown out of proportion. And yes, I think they had a very good, very warm working relationship. But yes, that kind of 100% trust was not there, due to which my father felt. And somewhere my father said, he told me that somewhere, perhaps Sonia Gandhi felt that Pranab Mukherjee is going to challenge her authority. So, and he told, and he said it without any rancor, that in a cutthroat world of politics, everybody wants to safeguard their interests. Sonia Gandhi was just saving her and her children's interests. And I mean, somehow probably she felt that Pranab Mukherjee would challenge her authority.
That's so interesting. So, are you in a way saying that he thought that Sonia Gandhi would make somebody the prime minister who she thinks would listen to her,
Perhaps,
as against somebody who has their own stand?
Perhaps, yes, perhaps, because what is the real reason, that only Sonia Gandhi will be able to answer. So these are all conjectures. These are all guesses. So this was my father's guess. And I also tend to believe, going through his diaries, and not just through his diaries, I think like various political observers have stated this, that there was this trust deficit, and the reason of this trust deficit was that Pranab Mukherjee was a political person. He was not somebody to blindly follow to anybody's line. So such a person is, perhaps would have challenged the authority. So I don't know, because these are all in the like something hypothetical, that what if this would have happened,
Yeah.
then that would have happened.
In hindsight, we can think about
In
it.
hindsight, we will think about it.
But we're talking about a political career spanning 5 decades. He has been the defense minister, finance minister, external affairs minister, the president. The prime minister was sort of the only feather missing in his cap. So that was always an unfulfilled dream, so to speak.
Of course, and again, as I wrote in that book, that one day I asked my father that, do you want to be the prime minister? He said, of course. Any politician worth his salt will be having this desire. But then he added that just because I want to become doesn't mean that I will become. So I said, why don't you go and talk to Sonia Gandhi about it? So he said, and talk what? And then he very deftly changed the subject, saying, I'm not like you, that if I don't get something, I create a ruckus. So this is something I noticed over the years in my father, that he was not very comfortable talking about it. And always he would, if I asked him, he would either very deftly change the subject. He was after all a politician, or would
And a
just
diplomat.
and a diplomat, or would get irritated about it. But whatever I have, but one thing I can say that he had that desire, but there was no expectation, because somehow he knew very well that Sonia Gandhi will not make him the prime minister. So if there is no expectation, there is no sadness also. And he told also a very senior journalist that I did not have any expectation from Sonia Gandhi to make me the prime minister. So if there is no expectation, there is no disappointment as well. And he knew very well that Dr. Manmohan Singh is going to be Sonia Ji's choice. So yes, desire was there, expectation wasn't there.
So in a way, he had accepted.
He has accepted.
Yeah.
He accepted this.
So, like you asked that question to him, that did you talk to Sonia Gandhi about it? That's the question that I have. That there are several differences that you've talked about that he had with the Gandhis. Was there ever any confrontation that you found in any of the diary entries that you've talked about in the book?
Yes, there are many instances. How do you define confrontation? That
Like
means-
confrontation or any bitterness towards the Gandhis because of these differences?
There is something different. There is difference between confrontation and bitterness.
Confrontation is going and talking to them.
There are ample examples in his diaries about heated exchange of words, about disagreements, about sparks flying. But what I felt, that at the end of it, all the key players, they knew how to handle the differences. And one of the things my father always used to say very openly, that it's not necessary that you have to agree every time on everything. And working under such high pressure conditions, obviously there are bound to be differences. And on many things. But after some time, as I say, there was tension, there was heated, my father, heated exchange of words was one of his very favorite phrases. Another was, I spoke very firmly and frankly.
Right,
This
right.
firmly and frankly is another phase. So obviously there are many instances, but after some time, everything seems to be back to normal. So obviously there are bound to be differences, but as I say, that bitterness, I don't think there was any bitterness, because as I said that firstly about Dr. Manmohan Singh, my father held him in tremendous regards, and it was reciprocated. With Sonia Gandhi also, as I said, there was a very warm relationship and there was no expectation from her. Desire and expectations are different. So I definitely don't think there is any bitterness as far as that is concerned.
That's a very important distinction to make, that there were differences, there was confrontation, but no bitterness, because it was still a team together. Now, I want to talk about another very important event I wouldn't call it an event, but a period of India's history that Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was a part of politically. That's the emergency period. Now, you have spoken about this in the book, and we've, of course, grown up listening to his speeches talking about democracy and talking about holding the values of democracy strong. But emergency was a period where objectively democratic powers were silenced, opposition leaders were arrested, thousands of leaders were arrested, millions of people were forcibly sterilized. That is objectively, as I said, challenging the democracy and the democratic values. So, what has he written about the democracy, and were there differences that he voiced out to Indira Gandhi at that time, being such a strong Indira loyalist?
No, at that time, going through my father's diaries of that time, that what I felt, firstly, he was a very junior minister at that time. He was a deputy minister. Hello. His diaries, very clearly I felt that him and people within Congress who later on turned their, face and deposed against Indira Gandhi in Shah Commission, they all supported emergency. To understand, I'm not justifying emergency, but you also have to, that's why I have written in detail in my book, that the situation before emergency, the conditions under which emergency was declared was perhaps as dramatic. There was this huge, firstly, railway strike led by George Fernandez. And the country came to a standstill, and I think, I don't remember the exact figure, the coal supply was just for 2 days, was left. But anyway, somehow it was managed to be called off. But then there was major student agitation, and these were not peaceful agitations. There was arson, there was looting of and destruction of government properties, private properties, Ghirao. Even one union minister was assassinated. 6 months, Lalit Narayan Mishra, I think, if I remember correctly. He was assassinated 6 months before before emergency was declared. So there was this prolonged period of unrest. What was happening? Then on top of it, came the Allahabad High Court judgment, which nullified Indira Gandhi's prime ministership elections, not prime ministership, Indira Gandhi's elections, on a very flimsy ground that she was using government money expenditure was used to create a rostrum and use of mic for electric power supply. And there was one, I think Yashpal Kapoor was his name, one government officer whose services were, and many other that she has crossed election expenditure and other things. Were they were all dismissed. But on this ground, her election was nullified, and she was barred from contesting election for another 6 years. And the opposition led by JP at that time, they were not even willing to give the government appeal to the Supreme Court. And they were asking for immediate resignation. Now, Indira Gandhi's nullification of her election, it doesn't affect only one particular person. It is not only just people who voted for her, but also people who voted for Congress led by Indira Gandhi. So it has an impact far beyond her own personal. So this was the background. And to be very honest, I wonder in today's context, if a union minister is assassinated, if there is a protracted, year-long violent agitation going on, if any judge dares to declare the current prime minister's election null and void on such flimsy ground, what would be the reaction? So that was the background of imposition of emergency. So there are two things, and also imposition of emergency there was a constitutional provision at that time. But there are two things. One is imposition of emergency, and another is excesses, which happened during emergency. And according to a very senior bureaucrat who was also associated with the government, P.N. a very respected scholar and diplomat, he wrote in his book that immediately within 6 months to 1 year, if elections were declared. And it was as it was supposed to be held. Uh, Perhaps the government would have won, or perhaps the Congress would have won. But this excesses which has happened during emergency and total, suppression of civil liberties of journalists, as you say, the infamous Nasbandi, obviously, I mean, it was horrible. It was horrible, and my father wrote in his book also, and he has said it many times, that if he had, as per him, that if Indiraji would have met JP even once personally, this perhaps wouldn't have happened, and all this would have been avoided. And he said that, as a very junior person and politician, I that time did not have the political maturity to understand the long-term implication, long-term implication of emergency and democracy for the country, for the party. So obviously he regretted that such a thing has happened. And Indira herself said that yes, it was wrong on her part to impose emergency.
Right.
And the people of India taught her a lesson. But surprisingly, three years down the line, they again brought her back.
So we're running out of time, but I want to ask you this last question. That you've gone through his journey of, as I said, 5 decades of political career. And as I said, there have been multiple roles. So I just want to ask you this as we end this very interesting conversation. What do you think was the most challenging, was the most hard part of his life?
Well, there are different kind of challenges, throughout, like these 50 years. This thing, there were many. I think politically, his lowest ebb was during the Rajiv Gandhi period, when he was also expelled from the party. And very challenging period was UPA 1, UPA 2, when he had to constantly do firefighting to save the government from collapsing. Personally, from him, I think even becoming the president was personally very challenging, because he just came directly from being a very, very active politician to a constitutional position when he was above party politics. So personally, to detach himself from that was definitely a very challenging position. I would say a challenging for him personally. And there is one interesting thing what I read in his diary. I would like to end with. He was mentioning about some rough patches he was going on. So he wrote in his diary, "Oh God, why me?" Prompt came the reply, "Why not?" So I think all of us, we should realize that, you are not the only person who is, who has to face difficulties in life, and so all of us, and whenever I go through any kind of such phase, and immediately I remember that reply, "Why not?"
So there's a lot to learn from this book, and I want to end on a happy note. We've talked about the most challenging part. What was the most happiest part, if you could just tell us?
I don't know.
Becoming the president or getting the Bharat Ratna?
I think everything, life is, I don't think there is any one point where you become ecstatically happy and there is only one point. But yes, at the end of it, as far as his own personal achievements are concerned, I think he was very satisfied. He was very satisfied. On the other hand, he was extremely sad to see the condition of the party that he has served for more than 40 years of his life. So there is not, life is always a mixed bag.
That's a perfect way to put it in a nutshell, that he was really satisfied and happy, but of course there are always differences. This is the book that we've been talking about. As we've said, a lot to learn from it about life, about morals, about ethics, about politics, about contemporary Indian history, and everything in between. So this is the book, and I'm sure you all have some questions, so let's take some questions from the audience. Does anybody have anything to ask Sharmistha Mukherjee?
Ladies first, please. First, she raised her hand.
So I wanted to just ask, how much did the diaries change your views on the world and the politics?
Well, to be very honest, even I was also when I was in politics. And this is something I realized, that when you are in politics, until unless you are a very mature one, which I was not, definitely, because I had just joined. You tend to perhaps lose your, I don't know what is not lose your balance, but to see things from different angles, and that is something I would say that my father had as a politician, and that was, I think, perhaps why he was known as a consensus generator, and that's why he was respected across party line. He had the ability to listen, and he also had the ability to understand, not necessarily agree, the other person's point of view. And this is something what I find really missing in today's political culture. And this is something, now I have quit politics, but this ability to listen, to have that empathy, this is what I'm trying to cultivate in my own life. Thank you. Now you can ask your question.
Ma'am, after hearing this conversation, I wanted to ask you that do you want to join BJP?
No, Baba, I don't want to join BJP. And this is something, everybody is asking, everybody is questioning. I have quit politics, and as I say, people believe it or not, I am against Rahul Congress. I question their leadership, but I am a hardcore Congress person. And I don't think there is any contradiction in this. And I'm not joining BJP or any other political party, TFC, AAP, anything you can think about.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Pranab Babu, of course, was a staunch politician, I can say. A kind of politician who was respected both in Congress and in BJP also, right? Very rare breed, like Manmohan Singh ji also, presently is having enjoyed the same thing. My question is, from being a congressman who worked along with Indira Gandhi ji, Rajiv Gandhi ji, and then handling that Congress in between Rajiv Gandhi and the very later on Chandrasekhar and all these people, all of a sudden he's out of Congress and kind of becoming a president. So he became kind of neutral. How was he handling these transitions?
That is something I think I have already answered your question. That one of the most difficult phases, challenges for him personally must have been to detach himself, because as president, you are above party politics. So and he was not a marginal player in Congress. I mean, he was right there in the thick of things. So I have already said, that for him, this must have been personally the most challenging aspect to detach. How he did it, I don't know, but he did it.
Do we have more questions?
मैम जो किताब आपने लिखी है क्या उससे पहले भी आपकी आदत रही, जैसे बचपन से कुछ लोगों की डायरी लिखना आदत होती है, तो क्या आपने कभी पहले भी लिखा या फिर सिर्फ इस किताब के लिए आपने लिखना सीखा या आपको उसकी आदत हुई?
मैं डायरीज तो कभी नहीं लिखती हूँ, लेकिन मैं बाय प्रोफेशन आई वाज अ कथक डांसर एंड कोरियोग्राफर, तो तब मैं आर्ट्स पर कॉलम लिखती थी, और पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन करने के बाद मैं पॉलिटिक्स में कॉलम्स, आर्टिकल्स, कंटेम्पोरेरी इश्यूज में ये लिखती थी. लेकिन कॉलम्स एंड आर्टिकल्स लिखने में और एक किताब लिखने में बहुत फर्क है, लेट मी टेल यू. बट ये नहीं कि मतलब मैं अचानक लिखना शुरू किया.
We were just talking about this before we started the conversation, how ma'am was a Kathak dancer before she became an author. So this is a Kathak dancer turned politician turned author. Let's wait to see what's next.
Interesting journey.
I think we had another question from the young gentleman there. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, personally, after your father's passing, what was any achievement you made personally or politically that you would have been really proud of you as a person? As a daughter?
I think as a daughter, as a father, he was quite proud of me. And, whenever I have heard it from various people that who has witnessed my performance, he would come and tell that, Sharmistha gave a very good program, very show, good thing. He would be very happy about it. He wrote a couple of times also in his diaries. And so he was, I think, a proud father. And about politics, I don't know, because in any case, I don't consider myself as a politician. The stint was too little, too less. But one thing I would say that perhaps one thing my father, and that's why he left me the diaries, did not leave my brothers or anybody else the diaries. And when I read his diaries and when I wrote the book, perhaps one thing, he had faith in me, that I would be true to his words. And I would do it without any fear or without any agenda. Without any agenda. I don't need to gain anything from any political party, neither Congress, nor BJP, nor anything. So I think that faith he had in me, and for me, I think until and unless my father was proud of me, was proud of my character, he wouldn't have given his precious guidance to me.
That's a lovely thought that you just put out. Any more questions? That's it. Okay. Should we take it? No? Are we out of time? Should we take it? You had a question, right? A young girl then, yeah?
Jen ma'am, it was really insightful to hear your views and stuff. I just wanted to ask that currently in Congress government, who do you think can be the potential leader of the opposition?
That's not for me to decide. That's not for me to say. That is something the Congress leadership should realize. But in my father's diaries, after 2014, he wrote that all is not lost, and if Congress can revive internal process of electing its leaders, encouraging grassroots leaders, starting from booth to every level. Basically, he talked about organizational. If that can be done, if that can be truly done, then he wrote this particular thing that there would be no need for slogans like Priyanka Lao, Congress Bachao. So I think that is the answer. The Congress workers need to find their own leader through genuine electoral process at every level of Congress. I think that is the only way. There is no magic wand. It's not going to happen in one day. But I think that is the only way, rather than superimposing people from top. Thank you.
If I can take the liberty, I have one follow-up question to that. Just the last one, I promise. You mentioned that he talked about the electoral process within the Congress party. There's one specific instance in which we talk about Rahul Gandhi resigning, and he says that it should be a non-Gandhi taking up the position. And you've quoted Mr. Sharmistha Mukherjee saying that how's that going to change much when even a non-Gandhi is going to be controlled by the Gandhis? In a way, that's what you alluded to. So now we have a non-Gandhi president of the Congress party, Mr. Kharge, who's been elected. But was the thought in Mr. Mukherjee's mind that even if it's a non-Gandhi president, the control will still be with the Gandhis?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I had an argument with him that, Rahul Gandhi has resigned as Congress president and he insisted on having a non-Gandhi president, so he said, and why do you assume that that non-Gandhi person will not have that real power? He just snapped at me that don't teach me Congress politics, So it is not just a question of, having one, election, and we all know, this process has to start at every level, and this also I have seen that Congress, and there are many references in these diaries which I have quoted. The Congress workers seem to have a strange kind of psychophancy about this Gandhi-Nehru family. Earlier it was said that they acted as the glue. Otherwise Congress will break. But in any case, now they are not even providing that glue. People are leaving. Leaders are leaving. Every day, somebody or the other is leaving. Yesterday, Ashok Chavan ji left. Before that, Milind Deora left. So they are not even acting as that glue anymore. So I think as a Congress supporter and as I say, responsible citizen of India, I have my right to question the role of Gandhi-Nehru family in today's Congress. Thank you.
That's a great note to end on.
Ma'am, I would like to ask a small question. Okay. In this book, as you have said, you are a successful Kathak dancer as well, and you were a liberal girl in your young age, and everything you have mentioned something in your book as well. So, like you have mentioned that when your friends used to come home, especially some of your friends who are boys, then your mother used to say something and she used to convince your father to
I think you are too young perhaps to relate to that, the plight of us women from that generation. It was a very common practice. And those days there were also no mobile phones. So our cousin used to live with me, and obviously our lifeline was a landline. And my mother would always complain that, why these girls are speaking on the phone, why so many boys are coming to meet them, why this, So this is a very common thing, of our generation going up process. So there is nothing, unusual in that.
So Pranab sir was a strict father or he was a modern?
Not at all, not at all. He would just keep quiet, listen to, and this is also in the traditional families. It's basically the mothers who, do this all these, but they do this nagging to their husbands, just to involve them. But once in a blue moon, maybe my father would, scold us, and then my mother would be very happy. We would be quiet for a few days, and then everything will be back to normal. So this is something was very, but I think to be very honest, neither my parents, they were not strict. Obviously, they were, going by their values of their generations. It was, they were as normal as any parents, And obviously, those days there were no short dresses. Otherwise, that would have been probably another bone of contention.
So Pranab sir didn't question about the boys or the shorts?
Not at all, not at all. Short dresses were tiny. All those nagging and complaining and scolding was the mother's department.
All right. So we've had a lovely session in my opinion. I hope all of you felt the same. It's a lovely book that ends up with you feeling more educated, with you really getting inside the powerhouse. And I think that's an incredible journey to be on. Thanks very much for this conversation. Thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. Thank you.
Once again, a huge round of applause for that amazing conversation. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights.